Today, I got some interesting information for you if you are interested in using generative AI tools. I know some of you are against it, which is fine. I'm cool with that. But if you are into using Chat GPT or perhaps Claude 3 now, which also does a really good job, this will probably help you kind of understand a little bit more about the recent releases for Chat GPT 4.0 Turbo. Some people are calling it 4.5, but whatever. It's still Chat GPT. What I wanted to show you was in this little white box up here on the screen. It's basically getting into how this thing works. So what it's going to do is going to allow you to pick up specific details for preferences and for things that you constantly have to keep typing and reminding it. So what it happens is as you chat with the Chat GPT, if you have the memory turned on, which you can turn it off, by the way, you can ask it to remember something specific, or you can let it pick up details itself. Chat GPT's memory will get better the more you use it, and you'll start to notice improvements over time, so it's not going to be right away. So let's say you explain that you prefer your notes for your games to have headlines and be a certain format. It will remember that if you ask it. And this way, if you ask it to recap, it's going to give you the output that you want. Let's say you've told it that you prefer DnD5e or Pathfinder 2 or something like that. It will kind of remember that. It'll say, okay, so this guy must be talking about this specific rule set or maybe a certain setting or whatever. You can also mention that you want your text to be, single spaced or whatever formatting type things you want. Or I think that you could even tell it some more specific things like, I want my stat blocks to be formatted in a certain way, which is something I've been fighting with since I started this journey of using generative tools. So that's some of the things that you can do to help control it. The other thing is you can turn it off in the actual settings. When you start a new chat, you can actually start one that doesn't have any memory. You can, instead of picking one or the other, like 3.5 or 4, you can say a memory lists or memory off, and then you can also go into the settings and change that so that you're not, you don't have to, opt into that. So if you don't want ChatGPT to recall or train on your data, you can turn that off also. So there's privacy, issues there. Or you can start a private chat, which is essentially what there's a temporary chat is what they call it. So this would be when you want to ask it something, but you don't want it to collect the data. So if you want to just use and have a conversation without using the memory that you've stored, you can do the temporary chat, which won't appear in your history. It won't use memory of your previous conversations. So that's another benefit for being able to switch between those different modes. So temporary chat is the way to go if you don't want to record anything. So this will allow you to be more helpful with your custom instructions. So it'll allow you to provide ChatGPT with direct guidance on what you'd like it to know about and how you'd like it to respond. And that was a huge hurdle in the beginning because even with custom data and having the ability to upload, your base information, that was constantly, it still is, it's a struggle because when you say use my information, it wouldn't always do that. And now it can kind of read between the lines. It can go between different conversations and pick up on your instructions without having to either A, upload all this stuff, and then it evolves over time. And then on top of that, if you have a team of people, like let's say you're a company or maybe you're a publisher or something like that, and you want to share a conversation, it will help because it'll start recording everyone else's input, and it will depend on what you guys set up as your parameters. But essentially, this would be great for business meetings and creating charts and all kinds of cool stuff. So if you're into that kind of stuff, but having this memory really will help. So GPTs, the custom ones will have their own distinct memory. Builders will have the option to enable memory for their GPTs, like your chats, memories are not shared with builders. So that's a good thing. To interact with the memory-enabled GPT, you also have to have the memory on. So for example, the Books GPT helps you find your next book that you want to read. So with the memory enabled, it remembers your preferences, such as your favorite genres, your top books. It tailors recommendations accordingly without needing repeated inputs, which is really helpful. Each GPT will have its own memory, so you might need to repeat details that you previously shared with Chat GPT. In this case, if you're going to do the team thing. And then if you're using the greeting card, you can always know that this particular person is either your spouse or your kid or whatever whatever you need it for. But in the case of role-playing games, you could put some established normals for your workflow, and then that way it'll help you speed up your process and make you a little bit more efficient. And then also it's nice to be able to conversate between your conversations, so you don't have to keep going back and forth between different GPTs, because it'll start collecting the memory that you assign. So that is a really big step in the right direction in regards to having more control and utility over a program that previously wouldn't really give you that. So it's going to take a bit to get used to it, to learn its limitations. I'm not sure what the limitations are, but I don't think it was designed to upload an entire PDF of your world. I think it's more conversational, and as you build, it's going to take the data and apply it to your memory, and you can also go in and tell it not to. So you can erase. I think you can erase certain pieces of it. I'd have to verify that, but that's something that a lot of people might be interested in. And also, images are starting to get better. If you use some of the other generative tools for creating images, they are starting to get to the point where you can get consistency. So that's kind of a nice thing, where if you upload a photo and you describe it, or you have it describe it, and then you give it the right commands or the right parameters, it'll reiterate that image as best it can, and keep the image fairly similar to what you had before. So it's not going to be perfect. It can't make duplications, because that's one of the things it promised content creators and artists and models and all that stuff. They don't want direct duplicates. But if you have a pose or a certain look or a color scheme or those sort of things, that's where it comes in handy. So if you wanted to theme something and you like a certain look, you can use that theme to pull in those elements into your generative item that you're creating, whether it be an image, or you can even take like a style of writing potentially and kind of let it read some of the passages and then say, okay, I want to take this and kind of make it similar. But they don't want the direct copy, especially for copyright and such. But nonetheless, it does bring up a lot of hate and questions and that sort of thing, where people are kind of scared because they're not sure what it's doing and how it's going to impact the job market and all that good stuff. So I'm not here to get into all that, but that is a consideration. So if you don't like Chat GPT or AI, that's cool. I'm cool with that, no problem. But for myself, I like using the tool to help me with writer's block and those sort of things. So I'm going to actually go into some of the memory that I asked it. So I don't have anything, I don't believe, that I will dox live, so I'm not too worried. But in our account settings on the bottom left, I can open that up and then go into custom GPT, and I'm going to enable it. And you can do for custom chats in this case, if that was the older way of doing this. The other way is going to the settings, and then you go to personalization, turn on the memory, and it kind of gives you an idea. It says Chat GPT will become more useful as you chat, picking up on details, preferences, blah, blah, blah. And here's the link. To understand what it remembers or teach it something new, just chat with it. Like, remember that I like concise responses, or I just got a puppy, or what do you remember about me, or any of those things, or where did we leave off on my last project. So in this, I see these little delete buttons, so you can go and independently delete things you don't want. So what I did right away is, since I do a lot of social media, I told it I prefer full text links. I don't want hyperlinks because it does that all the time. It really drives me nuts. Uh, do not need a summary after every request or question. So I prefer less lengthy summaries, if any at all. So don't provide a summary or commentary or any other thing when responding, because that just uses memory and takes time. I don't want it to do that. I prefer that I use the custom Chat GPT knowledge before referring to the model's training or researching the internet. So if I've uploaded stuff, there's a reason for it. I prefer that it use that knowledge first and then go to those other sources. I tend to write lengthy and complex posts, and I prefer responses to be divided into segments to help them manage the token length and memory. So if you've run out of memory, or you've noticed that it will stop responding because you got this huge thing going on, that's something you want to keep in mind too. I've told it that I frequently write content for RPGs, specifically D&D, Cyberpunk, Fallout, occasionally other systems. Also, I gave it my templates for an NPC stat block, so I gave it the example. I gave it my example for my rollable lists, so it knows the formatting. And then I also gave it my specific DnD5e adventure templates, which is set up for setup, overview, plot hooks, chapters, epilogue, appendix, those sort of things, or indexes, that sort of thing. So this is basically the holy grail here for someone who's going to be designing content. And if you need a little bit more consistency, this would kind of help. I wouldn't say the holy grail, but it'll be helpful. You can also clear all the memory. And like I said, you can delete individual things, like maybe there's something you wanted it to remember, and then you're like, no, I don't want it to. So you can change that, which is really nice. So that's cool. So just wanted to try something now. So I have a new Chat GPT here. It's not a custom one. It's not one of my normal custom Chat GPTs that I had made before. So this is, for AI generative, creation. So if you're watching, or if you're interested, you guys, you want it to prompt to do something, maybe something other than an image. Images tend to be pretty lengthy and take a lot of time, but perhaps some role-playing content that you want to see for Fantasy Grounds, or even for your PDF. So if you guys are watching and you want to see something like this, and you want it to do something specifically, I can demonstrate that. Just have to give me an idea of what you want, and then I'll go from there. And I'm not going to stress too much. It's just a test type thing. So if you guys have something in particular that you want, let me know. But I'm going to basically give it parameters, and I want to see how it formats it and get what kind of output I'm getting, at least for an adventure. We can start with that, because that's generally the biggest use case, besides making NPC stat blocks and rollable tables and such, is to make it like a one-shot. So I'm going to ask it to do something. And if you guys want to butt in and ask it, well, we can do that too live. So I'm going to say design a one-shot suitable for a 4-hour adventure, level 3, for 4 to 6 players. This is a tier 1 adventure, something like that. So in case you compass 1st through 3rd level, essentially. Adventure one shot, might be a little wordy, but, and then maybe a theme. So if you guys want to see a theme, like maybe a location or an environment or a certain city or a certain setting, we could do that. In this case, it's going to be D&D5e. So but it could be cyberpunk, it could be whatever world you wanted to. But if you guys are so inclined, if you guys would like to comment that and give me an idea if you're interested in something like that. But basically, I'm going to give it a command or a request, and then we'll see how it formats it. So DnD5e rule set. I mean, it could do this before, but it was kind of just doing it willy-nilly, kind of basing it off its training and stuff. Hopefully, this is going to take my memory and pull that in, because I've already asked to give an example of the type of output. And as it does this, if I don't like the output, I can update that memory and say, hey, I don't like this or that, So it's basically a tier 1 one-shot adventure. It's a one-shot adventure one-shot session. DnD5e rule set. I guess we can just say Forgotten Realms, since we already kind of know. I mean, we could say Dark Sun, or we could say a specific setting like Curse of Strahd. Let's do, kind of tired of those Sword Coast, Wizards of the Coast stuff. So if you guys can think of another 5e setting that it might be able to draw upon, that might be cool. Maybe Kobold Press world, or let's just do real basic. Let's not even set it anywhere. Let's do a swamp or a volcanic area or mountains, or let's do a dungeon crawler. There we go. I did a survey, or like a poll, and number one answer still is dungeon crawlers. The second was urban kind of adventures, like cities or towns, and then the third and fourth, but dungeon crawler was still number one. So we'll do dungeon crawler. I don't think we need much more than that. If we give it too much, then it's going to not really be that creative. It'll just be kind of very narrow. So we want to, I'll say create a big bad evil guy or gal and the lore in the intro, because I kind of want that to be stated. So we could actually, you know what? I'm not going to even do that. I'm going to let it do its own thing. So that's what I'm going to say. Design a one-shot suitable for a 4-hour adventure, level 3 for 4 to 6 players, a tier 1 session, we'll say. And then DnD5e rule set, dungeon crawler, and we can say SRD, SRD 5.1 data set only. We could do that. So if you're worried about, copyright, maybe you're trying to write your own material and you want it to try to avoid a lot of the proprietary stuff, you could do something like that too. I've actually uploaded the 5.1 data set to my custom GPTs, but in this case, I'm going to see how it does without it. So let's go ahead and hit go on it and see. So the Crypts of Wraithwood. So in the Crypts of Wraithwood, players explore the ancient haunted crypts beneath the Wraithwood Forest, a place rumored to house the lost relics of Sir Eldric the Bold, a legendary paladin whose spirit is said to protect his treasures from the unworthy. As the characters delve into the depths, they must navigate traps, solve ancient puzzles, and combat the restless undead to claim the artifacts and escape the malevolent forces within. So here's an important thing. So here's the here is the parameters. It did get those in there. Here's the DM background. Here's 3 plot hooks. Here's chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, the epilogue, and that's pretty decent. I mean, that's close to what I gave it for my adventure design. So the DM's background in this case is Sir Eldric, centuries ago, vanquished a cabal of necromancers. Upon his death, his followers sealed his magical weapons in the crypt, protected by puzzles and traps to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Since then, the crypt has become a lair for various undead creatures drawn to the magical aura of the place. So here are the plot hooks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to create a rollable list. So please create a rollable list. I don't say table because it will make a table. Create a list according to the plot hooks, using the 3 plot hooks on a 1d6 die. That way we'll see if it does it right. And I'll say format. Actually, I want to see if it pulls the memory or not. Yeah, that's exactly right. The only thing I could complain about is these bullet points. I don't really need those, but this is the format, and it knew what I meant. So that's good. Because before, I had to keep telling it over and over, like, just do this and do that. So here's the rollable plot hooks, 1d6. I could ask it to remove. I'll say, remember not to use hyphens or bullet points. I'll just say bullet points. And rewrite accordingly. So this is something that that you might have to wrestle with in the beginning until it gets an idea of what you're looking for. So what I want to do is rewrite, and I want to be a little bit more specific. So please do not use bullet points with rollable lists, and rewrite accordingly. Okay. We'll see if it fixes it and does it. Oh, that's really minor. I mean, that's not a big deal, but I want it to be right. So we'll see what it does. Okay, memory updated. And then you can highlight it, and it says prefers not to use bullet points to ensure the format is adhered to a plain text approach. So that's exactly why. So when you do this, you can import this into Fantasy Grounds a lot easier. So that's why I use this format. So if I go into library, no, we want to go into the campaign settings. We're going to go to tables and just kind of test this out. So I want to actually go make my own group here. So I'm going to call this, we'll just say, what was this? Wraithwood tables. You always want to start with your own custom list. That helps separate it from the regular data. And now I'm going to click on import text, and we're going to use delimited, which is the separator. We use the pipe. That way we're not using a colon or a semicolon, so that's in case you have sentences. So this is the separator here. So it's from 01 to 02 with that pipe symbol, and then the actual information. So I want to put that up here, and then it will say, let's see, what does this say? Oh, no, I need to add this thing here. I don't need that, so I'll just say plot hooks. And then what we'll do in this, I should have asked it to make this header, but it's close. So what I'm going to say is roll, and then have this pipe symbol, and then I'll say result. So that's going to be the header for the table. So what you're going to do is say column headers in first row. Yes. So this here where it says roll and result, that's the header. This is the title. So that's a whole nother, that's the table title. And then table ranges in the first column. So this first set of data on the left-hand side of the separator here is the data range. So when you hit import, that's what you get. So you got your table now, and it's all formatted correctly. So that's why I use that format. and then go ahead and roll and test it out. There we go. So now if you roll on this result, there was a divine vision made regarding the adventure where a cleric in the group receives a vision from their deity, urging them to prevent a rising evil in the crypt that threatens to spread across the land. That's kind of a cool plot hook if you got a group that's been playing for a bit. I might change some of these, because they're very specific. But what I'd really like to do with plot hooks is I like to have at least 3 to 6 of them, and each one gets progressively more direct. So, like, maybe the first 2 or 3 are kind of very loose and vague, and maybe if you roll a 6, that's more direct information or something like that. This helps with the replayability, but it also makes it fun to kind of roll and see what they get. You can also pick; you don't have to roll, but it's kind of a fun way to run adventures. I do like fate to decide occasionally. Sometimes it doesn't fit my narrative though, so I gotta make some tweaks to it. But for the most part, it seems to be kind of fun. So that's just the table part of this. So now what I want to do is ask it to create. Let's create this. Well, these are wraiths, right? So let's create the. Now should do the big bad evil guy first. So create the the spirit or whatever he is. Should he be a revenant, maybe? I don't know. What kind of undead should a paladin be? It doesn't have to be evil necessarily, but I don't know. Should he be just a spirit, like maybe a revenant? Is that the one that when they die, they're kind of stuck to protecting a certain area? So I want to say create a DnD5e NPC stat block for Eldrick. Let's see if I got his name spelled right. The Guardian. Oh, he's an animated suit of armor. Okay. That's good enough for Eldrick. Eldrick, yep. I don't like the name, but we'll see if it remembers the format, because I did say, do this a certain way. Okay, here's a stat block for Eldrick the Guardian, an animated suit of armor. So we'll see if it so far it looks right. Yep. Yeah, I don't want these actions here, so I don't need those hyphens, but I get it. It's for spacing. But so far, it's wrong. This is wrong. So the multi-attack is not right. These have to have a period after it, so that will not parse correctly. And then having these hyphens in there. So is this conversation? I'll say yeah, but I want to say I'm going to reword this. So please fix the NPC stat block according to my instructions, and do not use a code block, so I don't need that. So it still struggles a little bit with the formatting. I mean, it's going to take it a bit, to kind of get used to what you're looking for. Okay, so here we go. So this is closer to what I was looking for in regards to formatting. We'll see if it does it right, though. So so far it seems to be doing okay. We'll see what it does on the action. Yeah, see, this is wrong. This right here is usually one of the things that you'll find in a lot of stat blocks that's wrong, is that it'll put these colons. So what I'm going to say is, when creating DnD5e NPC stat blocks, do not use semicolons, hyphens, or dashes for the traits or actions. Please use only a period after each. For example, and I'm going to copy and paste this so it knows what I'm talking about. So I want this period, not the semicolon. And that's usually what breaks the parsing. So when you're doing a conversion or you're doing, using Fantasy Grounds import tool, that's generally what breaks. And also the formatting of this text here. This usually is wrong too. And I don't need these separators. So I want to say to ask them to remove that. So I'm going to also say, okay, for the ability scores, do not use the pipe symbol. Just make it 2 rows and 6 columns, please. We'll see if it knows what I'm talking about. Says it's okay. This is correct, kind of, but if it's going to do that, I prefer it to be a table, because when you copy and paste that over into Fantasy Grounds, it won't take the table information. But if it just has these pipes in here, it will. I prefer either they're not in there or it just make this a table, this piece here. So we'll see what happens. And I will say memorize or remember this. Okay, so when creating a DnD5e, okay, yep. All right, so we'll see what it does. Yep, memory updated. Very cool. We'll see if it adheres to that or not. Yeah, see, so far, yeah, it's not. It doesn't know what to do with that yet. So I will let it know. But it did fix this part, which is important because that's the main thing I was concerned about. So he's got a multi-attack, longsword, shield bash, and then he's a mutable form, magic resistance. So, okay, so I will say this is wrong. This is what I want. Just like this, without all those. Oh, actually, I gotta leave it that way. Otherwise, if I give it the right thing, I'll say remove the pipe symbol. I'll sleep pipe symbol, and I'll say remember this. So this is kind of what I went through before. Hopefully it will figure it out, but for some reason it has a hard time with formatting sometimes. I don't know why, but if you guys watch some of my older videos, I'm sitting there fighting this thing all the time. So far, it looks pretty good. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. So I didn't want any of those separator thingies in there. I don't need them. And if it was going to, I just prefer it made a table, because I know that works for Fantasy Grounds in some cases. So shield bash, yep. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take this information and copy and paste this into Fantasy Grounds. And then I don't know if we need that name. We'll see. So if I go to NPCs, I'm going to make my own group. So hit edit, hit the plus button. We're going to put Wraithwood NPCs. And that's going to be the category. And now I'm going to bring up the import text block here. Hit Control V as in Victor. And then right click, and you can kind of look at the preview of how this is going to look. So there was some information I copied there that I didn't want. So I don't want that. And then everything else looks okay. Traits is right, actions, everything's got a period after it. That's right. Hit import, and let's see what it does. So here's Eldrick the Guardian. So far it looks okay. Yeah, so it parsed all those correctly. There's a summary on the back. So it looks pretty good. So what we could do is, before I imported this, we could have put the background here so it'll look a lot cleaner. So what I'll do is copy the name, put that in there, and then I'll highlight this using the controls for formatting text. So Control 2 will make that a header. And then I'm going to have it so please include the other data for Eldrick, like history, tactics, description. I like all that stuff because when you have a NPC that doesn't have anything and you just applied it to you didn't have time to really look at it, it's nice to have that summary in the back because you don't flipping through a monster manual. I mean, that's part of the fun, I guess, in playing, but I like to have it at my fingertips. I don't want to have to dig through something to find out. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But anyways, so please include the other data for Eldrick, like his history, let's say combat tactics, and a detailed description. And the reason I do that is if I want to make an image after that, I can use that as a prompt. So we'll go ahead and see what it does here. Oh, it made the whole stat block. Oh, I guess I should have been more specific, but that's okay. And look, it made everything bold. That's great. That's good. I'm not using this. I mean, it's right, but we don't need the bold. And that's just being picky, but that's kind of the stuff that, it can irritate the crap out of you. You're making content. Sometimes that does carry over into Fantasy Grounds, so it could be problematic if you're going to be using that. Okay, so here we go. Here's the description, the history, combat tactics, engagement strategy, defensive tactics. Wow, it's really going crazy. What happened to my... wow, okay, it gave me all that, but I'm going to say what happened to the physical description in his new form. I mean, come on, what's going on here? Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste this stuff here. This is okay. I can use that. It's a little lengthy, but it is what it is. So I'm not going to worry about that. So this is the background information. So he's going to have some pretty decent lore here. So I don't mind that. I'd rather have too much than too little, because that quite often you're left holding the bag here, and I don't. If you didn't have time to read through this, you definitely will be floundering around especially this would be like a final encounter or something. It's kind of a big deal. So on NPCs like this, like the big bad evil guy, this is important. On the lower level stuff, maybe not, but in this case, I do like to include this information. That way you have something to work with, and even if you don't use it, it's there. So that is so defensive tactics. I like what they put here. This is really helpful. I mean, especially if you were new to D&D and you weren't sure about how these things work. I mean, that would be awesome. Okay, and then finally the descriptor. So what we could do with that, a couple things. So, all right, so wow, okay, it gave me Okay, so here's the personality and the description. All right, so personality, appearance. So that's one thing. And then without consciousness. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to make this bold again, or, kind of a header type look. And then I'll use this to kind of clean up. You right click on here and you go to this wand, and it'll help clean up your, oops, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so with that in there, we can use that. And now when I import it, it's going to look a lot more complete on the back tab. So none of this has changed, but on the back here, you've got all this stuff, and including the summary. So that's really nice. So let's see what it wrote here. So in the history, let's see. All right, so this is the big bad evil guy, right? This is the big final boss or whatever. So history is that he was once a knight loyal to a long-forgotten king, famed for his valor and strength. After his death, powerful clerics and wizards bound his spirit to his armor, creating an animated guardian to protect a sacred crypt. His task is to guard the relics and secrets of his ancient order, challenging those who dare to disturb the sanctum. His appearance, oh, I guess it did already. It did already have that. I didn't even see that. Okay, so I screwed up. Okay, so this, I don't need that. Okay, so we need to pay more attention. But anyways, it gives us the appearance, and I think that this is going to be that, and then I'm going to make this bold. There we go. All right, so he appears as a towering suit of ornate armor, glowing faintly with an ethereal light. His movements are both graceful and powerful, imbued with a supernatural force. The armor is intricately detailed, reflecting his noble status in life. It radiates a soft, haunting light that chills the soul. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this is copy it. I'm going to make another line. Now, this is kind of unnecessary, but you could make this chat output. So if you didn't want to read this and you just want to send it to the chat, you could. So you can hit Control V here, and you can highlight the text and then hit, I believe it's Control 3. Yeah, so this is going to be the chat output, and you can change this up a little bit if it's too revealing, or if there's information here you don't want to share yet. But when you click on that, that's going to send this description out to the chat. So this will help you automate, or at least, get the information out there quicker if you want. Sometimes it's better if you read it, and other times it's easier just to send it to the chat, let the players read it, or let your main character read it, or something like that. Make them more involved. Usually I'll assign this to the person who doesn't interact that much. They usually seem okay with reading stuff, but they may not role play. So that's an opportunity for them to participate without actually role playing. So, there's little tricks you can do to try to get them involved. They may not want to do it, but at least you're giving them an opportunity. I think that's an important thing about this game and this hobby, is giving people opportunities. So this is the write-up. So it looks pretty good for now. Now I want to make, let's say, the token. Okay, so I want to make the artwork. So what I'm going to do is take that description that we used and create an image type thing. Parse NPC spells. Oh, that's interesting. I guess you can take this if they have spells, and right click and parse the spells. Really neat. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take and place this in a Chat GPT session where we can actually ask it to make the artwork for it. So let's see what we can do. So I'm going to say create a detailed image of, comma, and I'm going to say create a full body image, full body detailed image, a full body, comma, detailed image of We're not going to say Eldrick, of a suit of animated armor, because it's not going to know what Eldrick is. It appears as a towering suit of ornate armor, glowing faintly with ethereal light. Its movements are both graceful and powerful, imbued with a supernatural force. The armor is intricately detailed, reflecting nobility. I'll just change that a little bit because it's not going to really know what some of that is. Trying to simplify it a little bit. And it radiates a soft, haunting, I'll say light, we'll say blue, light blue glow. Otherwise, who knows what it's going to be. All right, so that's the main part of the prompt for the artwork, or for the, not artwork, let's say generated image. Let's get that straight. Artwork would be if I actually drew it. So let's see. So that. Okay, so that's that. And then we're going to say expert and detailed Dungeons and Dragons character art. I use that a lot with generative AI tools. This is something that's been carried over for months, so I use that all the time, and that helps narrow down what you're looking for. The next thing is I'm going to say professionally designed digital oil painting art. If I don't put that on there, it's gonna look too digital. I want it to have some artistic kind of look to it. 3D animation octane render. So I do want a little bit of the video game look. And now the parameters I'm going to put in here is a 9:16, so that's the vertical aspect ratio. Now it doesn't always follow this. If you use other tools, they're a lot more direct. This one depends on what you're showing, but what I'm going to do is trick it. So if I don't, it's going to just kind of render it how it wants. So what I'm going to do is, I guess I'm going to put in the background is an ancient tomb, and the floor is stonework, flagstones, we'll say, is dim and gray. So what I'm doing is kind of forcing it to look at the ground. So if I had just said this, it might do it right, but I don't have any way of knowing. But with adding this background in here, it's going to help force it to look down at the ground. So in other words, instead of just showing the upper part, so you kind of have to trick it. So like if you want a full body image in this case, and let's say it was a sorceress, if you just tell it that, it's going to do it however it wants. What it's trying to do is fit in all of those things. And if it doesn't think it can fit it into that dimension, it's going to make it however it wants. So in this case, I'm going to just mention that there's a ground. Maybe that'll help, maybe not. I don't know. We'll find out. So this is the prompt, and this is based off of the description that was generated for this particular NPC. So we'll see what it comes up with. Sometimes it comes up with good stuff. Once in a while, it kind of sucks. So you have to kind of, and this is for a homebrew game, so I'm not too worried about it. This is something that you might use once, so spending all this time on this, it may not be worth it. So that's pretty cool. Actually, I gotta say, not gonna lie, that is neat. That is really good. So I have to say that I would use this in a pinch. I don't have any problem with that. That's a really nice picture. Now, it spits out an image that is pretty big, and you might have to take it and remove the stuff around it with an image editing software. But that's pretty darn good. Now, if you wanted consistency, let's say you wanted to make the wraiths that go along with this. So what I will do is I will basically say, what are the image gen ID numbers and the seed number for the image above. And I'm going to tell Chat GPT to do this indefinitely. So what I'm going to do, since I haven't done this yet, is I'll say, what are the image gen ID numbers and the seed numbers for the image above? Remember to provide or ask this question with the image numbers for generating images. See if it remembers that. So that's something that I always have to, I don't always want that number, but it helps to have it. Because if you want to use a similar style, then you got to use those numbers. And it's better to have that. Okay. So this is the number. So what you can do now is you can say, okay, use these seed numbers and create the wraiths, or a trio of, or a duo of wraiths. So let's do that. So I will say, with the generation ID for the animated suit of armor, okay, with the generation ID, blah, 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 and the seed number, I'll say create an image of 2 wraiths. I'll say dark and evil undead wraiths floating in the chamber mentioned above. Use similar prompt settings. Okay, so without having to write the entire brand new thing, now I can take from this image using the seed number and the gen ID number to generate an image that's going to use a similar color, texture, tone. It's not going to be an exact replica, but it's going to be close, or a lot closer than starting over. So we want seed number using 2 dark and evil undead and ethereal, because we want them to look kind of ghostly. So ethereal works pretty good. Let's see what happens. It may or may not come out good, but this would be the next NPC you're working on anyway. So while that's coming up with that, we'll see what it does. So hopefully this helps you guys. I don't know if this is a bunch of hoopla or a bunch of BS, but this might be helpful if you guys use generative AI tools to create content for your games and such. So I think I'll be ending this soon, but let's see what the image. Oh yeah, that is really cool. Those came out really excellent. I don't mind this little bar down here. I guess that just try to make it square instead of, I probably should have been more specific about the orientation, but I'm going to give that a thumbs up. And I'm going to download this. So this is another really cool example of the type of stuff you can get out of this tool once you learn how to use them. So that's very useful. So then I might use this as a token, like take the face and make a token out of it. Then maybe use one of these images as the full body image for the Fantasy Grounds 3D thing. And then use this image, the total image, as a handout so they can see what these things look like as they're coming around the corner or something. So now I can ask it to make, I'll say, please make the DnD5e NPC stat block for the Wraithwood Wraiths using the previous template example above, and include the background and other details at the end of the stat block. So I don't want it to just insert it wherever it's done that before. So you kind of get used to the little quirks that this thing can do. So we'll see if it does it. If not, no big deal. I can ask it to rewrite it. But generally speaking, if it's something really small, I'll just fix it before I... Okay, so the Wraithwood Wraiths. So far it looks good. It's still using bold, but that's not a big deal. Yep, life drain, melee weapon attack. Yep, really cool. There's a saving throw. Create specter, so it can target a humanoid. It's got incorporeal movement, sunlight sensitivity. Here's the background. So yeah, that's, this would have normally like, without explaining all this, I'd be already done with it. But when I was making this stuff in Fantasy Grounds, I'd take a copy of the of Wraith and then update it and change it around and stuff. It took a little bit longer. So doing it this way is actually really quick, comparatively. Especially, like, you can knock out a really good one-shot adventure in probably an hour and a half, and with images and everything. So that's pretty good. And that's just for 3 to 4 hours of play, one shot. The only thing you don't have here is the maps. I don't recommend using Chat GPT for maps. You can do it, but they don't turn out very well. They're rarely to scale, and they're very hard to put a grid on. So if you're going to do a map, I suggest doing a tile and then just tile the image. Tiles seem to work a lot better. They're smaller and more dedicated. If you try to do a dungeon or whatever, it's gonna piss you off, believe me. I mean, you could try it, but I've done it with different ways. I've had some success with it, but it was really not worth all the effort. I prefer just to buy it, or pay someone to do it, because or make your own in Fantasy Grounds, because this is annoying when you're trying to do maps. Some reason they just don't turn out. I've tried it with other generative AI programs, same thing. And top-down tokens, same thing. I mean, you could do it, but it's really difficult. It doesn't quite come out the way you want. So, continue to pay for those until they can come up with something better, because this is not the good tool for that. It's just better if you, get someone else to make them and pay for them and everything. But for making the adventure and some of the art, this definitely is a way to go. So anyways, I helped explain a little bit about the memory crossover thing, which is something that is important. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, is that you now have the ability to make it remember things, the Chat GPT in this case, and then have the ability to, whether you want to erase it or opt out or whatever you want to do. But this is really helpful. You can kind of knock something out really quick. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. You guys have a good week. So tomorrow's Thursday, so we're getting there. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you around next time. Bye-bye.